guys, Mr. V over here doing a book review today for Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. This is a memoir about Frank McCourt, the author, and I gotta say, this is a powerful memoir because you're following the life of Frank McCourt, but he was born during the Great Depression, and you just follow life from when he was a little kid and you see what it was like being born during the Great Depression, but also his family was already poor. They moved to Limerick, Ireland, which is another poor area. So you see what it was like living during the Great Depression and the struggles that he faced and his family faced, because they are just struggling for everything, like for food, for clothing, for housing, and there's just so many more, and you just read about it. There's just so much, and it just makes it very powerful when reading. But he was in a very poor area, and his family is struggling even more than other families because his family had many children, so they had many mouths to feed, many people to clothe. The father was in and out of jobs nonstop. It was the Great Depression, so it's hard to find jobs, but his father struggled even more because he was an alcoholic. So he got fired quite often. But the other part about being the alcoholic was he often would drink the wages away. What little money he made, he would drink away and then just leave the family struggling. So they just really did not have money. They were just worried about how are they going to live. So you read about that, and that's why I said it is powerful when you're reading. It's a little bit tough to read at times because it's a sad and somewhat dark book. You can probably tell just based off the cover. It can be a little bit dark, but something about it just pulls you in very quickly because the author does a great job of making it interesting. He even adds a little humor in there, which is quite entertaining when you're reading some of the humor about it because you know he's in a tough situation, yet he's still able to add some of that humor. So he just made it very interesting. Now, this memoir is told from the perspective of a child. He's like 8, 9, 10, and follows him through his teen years, but a lot of it takes place when he's like 8, 9, and 10, around those years. But it's very interesting hearing that perspective because the kid, he's breaking all the rules. They're doing things like stealing small things on farms. He would like quickly go steal some fruit or something like that. There's the bullying and fighting in school. But like he's still like worried, like what are his parents going to think if he gets caught ditching school? So it's interesting reading that perspective of like just everything from a child's perspective and how he viewed the Great Depression from that perspective. I just think Frank McCourt just did a great job of writing. It was a very well written book, and he adds a lot of dialogue throughout the book. There's a lot of dialogue, and I think the dialogue just helps the whole story because you can just visualize what's going on through the dialogue. There's a lot of dialogue in the book, and you just visualize based off how they interact. You know, you hear how they're talking to each other, and you can start to see like, okay, I can tell what's going on because it's a rough setting. You know, the family's in extreme poverty. Some of the families around there have to share the same toilet, or some of his friends don't have shoes. So you can see the poverty they're going through, and just they very rarely bathe or just the rags they're wearing. You know, it's tough when you're reading it at times. Yet he still throws that humor in, and that's where the dialogue comes in. The dialogue still has humorous elements to it. And I think the dialogue just really, it sets the scene because he gets great dialogue. And it just makes it very interesting. And it made it like an amazing read. It was a very interesting book because you're reading about his struggles and how he got through them. But it also gave me like a different perspective on a lot of things when I was reading it, and gave me a different perspective on their life, but also my life. And it was just very interesting to read. Now, I listened to the audiobook. I always listen to the audiobook while I read it. I do both. And I highly recommend the audio because it is read by the author and it just adds something special when you're listening to it because you just feel the passion that Frank McCourt is giving because he lived through it. So you just feel that passion. But he's still doing like different voices for different people, as I mentioned the dialogue. So it helps break up who is saying what. And I think that helps a lot in the book. Because one of the things that was a little tough on this book was that he didn't add quotation marks for the dialogue. I don't know why. When you're reading the book, there's no quotation marks. Now, when you're reading it, it's pretty obvious to tell who is speaking, and there's a lot of back and forth. But I don't know why he didn't add quotation marks. The audio, though, helped for that portion because you can just hear the different voices going back and forth about it. So that's why I said I recommend the audio for that reason as well. Because, again, I don't know why he didn't use quotation marks. One thing, if you're considering the book, though, just prepare that some of the chapters are a little long. Some of the chapters are shorter, but there are some long chapters in here. The chapters flow very well together. You don't have to worry about that aspect. But sometimes you have to like stop partway through just because of the length. I'll give you an example. Is when I was reading the audio, some of the chapters were 2 hours. Many of them are 30 minutes, but some of them are like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So just be prepared for that aspect if you're considering the book. But overall, I just felt this was an amazing, amazing book. This is the story of a kid's life and his family, and living through the Great Depression with extra struggles. Just the harshness and the sadness and how they're starving, and it's just difficult. But how they survived and what they did. And it was great. He also throws some humor in there. So it was just great reading it. And when you read it, I think it just makes you appreciate life because reading the Great Depression can be quite difficult. Whereas the people in the book even just want one piece of bread. So it can really make you appreciate life. And it made me think and just appreciate how much I have and just how lucky I am in life. So it was just a very powerful memoir, but I highly, highly recommend you guys read Amsel's Ashes by Frank McCourt. If you guys enjoyed the book review today, hit the subscribe button because I always upload multiple different types of book reviews. If you guys have any comments, have any questions, post it in the comment section below because I always love hearing your comments. Well, thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy your reading.